In the beginning, the heavens were set as a living scroll, and God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from night. Let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and for years." The lights of the sky were not given for beauty alone. They were placed as signs, a celestial language written by the Creator to mark the rhythm of sacred time. The stars became the first scriptures, a book that could be read long before ink touched parchment. The ancient ones looked up and named the hosts of heaven: the bear and her cubs, Orion with his shining belt, Pleiades bound with her chains, and the constellations of the south. God himself asked Job, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their season? Can you guide the bear with her cubs?" The question was eternal. Do you see how the heavens move by my command? The psalmist declared, "The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies declare the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge." The sky isn't silent. Its language is older than every nation, and its wisdom pours out without words. The stars themselves tell the story of God's design. And so it was that wise men, Magi from the east, keepers of the ancient mysteries, priestly astrologers who read the patterns of heaven, saw a new sign unfold in the night sky. In the constellation of Pisces, the house of Israel's promise, Jupiter, the royal star of kingship, drew near to Saturn, the keeper of time and destiny, and they said, "A great ruler is to be born among the Jews." Some say it was a triple conjunction, a dance of Jupiter and Saturn in the heavens. Others say it could have been Jupiter and Venus conjunct, and they were so close that they looked like a single radiant star. Whether it was a planet, conjunction, heavenly light beyond reckoning, the Magi looked up. They knew a king was being born upon the earth. Maybe they didn't even look up. Maybe they just were reading it, like astrologers do on a chart. But in Matthew, it says that they lifted their eyes. They declared, "We have seen his star in the east, and we have come to worship him." Following the path of the heavens, they crossed the sands, guided not by maps, but by the silent testimony of the sky. And the star went before them until it stood still above Bethlehem. There they found the child, the Word made flesh, the King foretold by prophets and confirmed by stars. Even creation itself bore witness to the Christ. John, in his vision, saw the same sky as Scripture. He wrote, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon beneath her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars." The woman crowned with the zodiac, the cycle of 12, the eternal turning of time itself. From Genesis to Revelation, the Bible speaks through the stars. From the first word of creation to the birth of the Messiah to the final visions of prophecy, and the heavens have been the canvas of God and will continue to be the canvas of God for all of time. The sky is a temple without walls. The sun and moon mark seasons. The constellations rise in their appointed time. The zodiac is not by chance. It's an order, a will of sacred time, moving with precision at the hand of the Creator. As above, so below. As in the heavens, so upon the earth. The stars themselves are Scripture, and the heavens declare the mystery of God. Historically, the Magi were priest scholars from the East, often associated with Babylon, Persia, or Mesopotamia, where astrology and astronomy were deeply interwoven with religion. In those cultures, the Magi studied the skies to interpret omens, track planetary movements, and align their rituals with celestial events. When Matthew records them saying, "We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him," it reflects astrological practice. They read the appearance of a new star as a sign of a great king's birth. They connected this cosmic sign to prophecy and traveled to Judea, believing the heavens revealed divine truth. So while the Bible calls them wise men, their wisdom came through a mix of astronomy, astrology, and sacred knowledge. So yeah, in modern terms, they are astrologers. They were astrologers. Many people have been taught to fear astrology without even doing their own due diligence, looking deeper at what Scripture itself says about the heavens. Why did God place the stars above us? God declares the purpose of the lights in the heavens. Let them be for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. That means the stars, the sun, and the moon aren't random. They are a part of a divine order, and God intended them to be read as signs. The sun governs the day, giving light, warmth, and life. The moon governs the night and the tides, marking cycles and months. The stars and constellations mark seasons and sacred time. Even in Job, God himself references the constellations, asking him if he can bring them forth in their season. That reveals that the stars do move in harmony with divine timing. What Scripture warns about is not the stars themselves, but idolatry, worshiping creation instead of the Creator. We are not to bow down to the sun or the moon or the stars. Babylonian astrologers were criticized because they tried to use the stars for power apart from God. Using the stars as signs of God's order is entirely different. Astrology in its highest form is not about fortune telling or any type of control. It's about understanding cycles and patterns and this spiritual timing of life. When used prayerfully and humbly, astrology can help us understand our strengths, our struggles, and soul lessons. It reminds us that we are a part of a greater cosmic order, not random accidents. Astrology can guide us toward balance, compassion, and self-awareness. The heavens reflect the inner life. Just as the moon influences the tides, the movements of the planets mirror the inner tides of the soul. This isn't superstition, it's harmony between the microcosm, which is us, and the macrocosm, which is the creation. Now, God didn't scatter the heavens carelessly. God placed the stars as living language of signs, a clock of sacred time, a mirror of divine wisdom. Astrology, when rooted in reverence, can be a tool of healing, not because the stars rule us, but because they reflect the wisdom of the one who made them. As Psalm 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. There are a few reasons why astrology has often been degraded or dismissed by mainstream institutions. Control over knowledge. Astrology encourages people to observe patterns, think critically about cycles, and reflect on personal and societal trends. If more people are attuned to these patterns, it can foster independent thinking, self-awareness, empowerment, which in itself can feel threatening to systems that rely on obedience or keeping the public distracted. Astrology can make people feel guided by natural laws rather than human authority. Historically, ruling powers often wanted spiritual and moral authority, centralized on religions, governments, elites dictating what is right or true. And astrology challenges that by saying, you can interpret the sky for guidance yourself. Astrology is a great tool. It can reveal subtle influences in behavior, politics, and culture. Those in power may prefer people to attribute events to randomness or fate rather than patterns that could be studied and predicted. Understanding timing and cycles could theoretically allow people to anticipate or resist manipulative events. And on a symbolic level, astrology ties human life to the cosmos. If people feel connected to larger cycles, they may stop seeing themselves as mere subjects of a system and more as active participants in a universe with its own intelligence. That shift in perception can feel destabilizing to entrenched hierarchies. It's not necessarily a global conspiracy in every case, but historically, things that empower individual insight and discernment, especially things that can't be easily monetized or controlled, often get marginalized. We can go back to ancient Rome and early Christianity, where astrology was widely practiced in the Roman Empire. Emperors sometimes used it for decision making, but it also allowed people to predict political shifts, Early Christian leaders like St. Augustine criticized astrology as a threat to divine authority. If the stars determine your fate, then God's direct control could be questioned. Astrology gives people a sense of foresight and personal agency, which competes with the church's claim to moral and spiritual authority. We can go back to the medieval European days, where astrology was initially part of the academic life. Universities taught it alongside astronomy and medicine. Over time, the church and political authorities began labeling it as occult or superstition, especially if it suggested humans could influence or predict outcomes independent of God. Figures like Kepler and Galileo during the Renaissance and scientific revolution, they were astronomers, but they were also astrologers. Astrology during that period of time was intertwined with early science. But as modern science arose, astrology was pushed out as unscientific because it didn't fit the emerging paradigm of empirical experimentation. In modern day, astrology is centered around horoscopes, seen as entertainment, rather than a tool for self-knowledge or political insight. Everyone focuses on their sun sign and has no idea what their chart really says. And this chart was mapped out the moment that they took their first breath. As long as the powers that be keep the masses dumbed down, they won't be serious about using a system that fosters awareness of patterns and cycles. In a world where information is power, understanding timing, personality patterns, and influence could reveal a lot for the seeker of truth. At every stage, astrology gives people foresight, self-awareness, pattern recognition, and authority figures have historically felt threatened by people making independent decisions based on knowledge they can't control. And suppression often comes in the form of ridicule, labeling, exclusion. As an astrologer, I track cycles, not conspiracies. I look at planetary transits and eclipses. I wonder about the events that could typically occur during this type of cycle. Like with Mercury retrograde, it could be miscommunications, tech glitches, travel delays, things of that nature. These are patterns that have always shown up. Using astrology as personal awareness to understand behavioral tendencies is a good thing. To understand why you have lost children and know that it's not something that you were cursed with, but something that you agreed to upon entry of earth. To think that your child died, the prayer wasn't right, but God blessed this other family and chose their prayer over yours. It's just things like that astrology really can help people with. And as somebody who's read the Bible front and back, and studied mythology, I can tell you that the heavens are a living scroll. From Genesis to Revelation, the Bible speaks of the stars, the sun, the moon, as signs in the firmament, markers of divine time and sacred mystery. This cosmic design that I read every day has been created for us to share the good news. Ancient scripture and celestial wisdom is where it's at for me. And if it's for you as well, then we are definitely going to be having a meeting of the minds a lot. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Please leave a comment below, like and subscribe, share. Until my next video, peace out.